Good day, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining my friend Kana Leya and I in a co-created conversation. It's a juicy one today, and the theme that we're going to be exploring is the discovering the unearthing of our true deepest desires, gifts, talents and abilities, and what it takes to truly embody that in our life today. So I'm really quite excited to welcome Kana Leya. She's been a friend and a fellow paradigm shifter, worldbridger, a being that really has chosen to live life all guns blazing, so to speak, and not hold back, and has really massive visions, really quite extraordinary visions. So for those of you that haven't met Kana Leya, I'll just give you a bit of context as to who she is. So she's the founder of Wisdom Frontiers, World Bridges and Regen Living Hubs, and she's devoted her life to the rise of servant leadership and regenerative solutions, which I really love that. She calls herself a midwife, a steward, a teacher, a student, and an artisan of life on this journey. And she is committed to being a world bridger to both the inner and the outer worlds. And how this translates is that she has particular focus on neo-Indigenous emergent culture and spirituality, new economic platforms, wisdom education, emergent wisdom technologies, which basically, for those of you that are wondering, what does that all of that mean? Basically what that means is she's committed to grounding and birthing and visioning a whole new way of how humanity can live together as a society in all its many wonderful facets and complexities. So Kana Leya, welcome, and thank you for saying yes to this beautiful opportunity.
Thank you so much, my beloved brother. It is such an exquisite honor and magnanimous joy to be with you, to share and to dance in this portal in continuum together. Thank you so much for the invitation and the boldness of this anchoring.
You're welcome, thank you. So the first kind of starting point that I'd like to, it's like the pebble that we're going to put into the pond, and then we're going to allow the ripples to do what it wants to do. And that is, what did it take for you to come into connection with your gifts, talents and abilities, and to recognize that there was something special, there was something important for you to utilize and to bring together, and to, I guess, have a responsibility to commit to the path of finding what these are. And I'd be really interested for us to hear a little bit about how was that journey for you? What were some of the stories or situations that happened that enabled you to get in contact with these gifts, talents and abilities?
What a potent question, brother. Thank you so much. The pebble that you've set in this infinite ocean. I'm feeling the ripple effects already within my being. It's so fascinating within this same breath of breathing my life through the eras, through this poetic question. It's fascinating because I'm equally mirroring and fascinated by your journey equally. So I'm looking forward to the reciprocity of this as it flows as well. What has it taken, and what are some of my journeys and stories? Feels like lifetimes long and infinite lifetimes looping within the same breath as well. It's been a deep reflection for me recently, this question precisely. And just before we've landed here, I received the giftitude of listening to a number of the fellow teachers in our realms currently, and they call it awakening moments, in their life and how it was for them. And it was really fascinating for me to reflect on it for my journey as well. And for me, I resonate with more the concept or the realm of EnRisement, how it's been invoking in me. And every time I've read awakening or enlightenment recently, particularly enlightenment, I've felt that has been, it's teetered into the realm of, it's too charged now. Like there's so many layers and projections to some degree, and intimidations, I feel, for the everyday being, that it's so grand and like, oh, how will I ever get to enlightenment? Will I ever be enlightened in this life? You know? And so I've just so resonated more with EnRisement, this journey of enrising within myself, within ourselves, and honoring and amplifying the enrisement of each other. And this pertains so exquisitely with your question of discovering my gifts and our gifts. It's all a continual refractive mirror. And so that's been enrising in me. Oh. And there's been some potent memories that's been enrising in memory for me, perhaps also in inspiration since your potent invitation of this deepening together and servitude. And in essence, part of what I love to share in inspiration as a invitation for the beings who are receiving this or on this journey together is truly allow yourself throughout your daily practice for as long as it's needed, whether it's 20 minutes, whether it's an hour, whether it's hours, however long it takes. This is truly one of the deepest invitations of our lifetimes and of our era. And so it really deserves your life energy and the dissolvingment of attachment to what needs to happen in a day, seemingly from the mind view. And so recently I've been dropping into that ever more, and the remembrance of the first moment, one of the first moments when I felt the singularity, when I felt infinitude and the deep void of everythingness, and yet deep bliss within the same breath, and utterly in a nanosecond terrifying and equally complete home feeling, was when I was in year 5 and I was at a dance gathering. It was, the primary school dance party. Probably one of the parties ever, or gatherings in my life. And thankfully my body, the way my body was moving and the way it coalesced with the rhythm and the music, the rhythmic attunement that was pulsing through the space. I couldn't describe it like this at the time. But thankfully I just let it flow and remembered. I came to that and I most likely do it because we relate in this sacred movement medicine that we so revel in, and you would relate, you'd be able to relate, and perhaps I'd love to hear yours as well about that first moment of remembering. And it's been a continual remembering and unraveling journey since then. I'm 36 now, and so year 5, goodness gracious, I mean that's a good 25-ish years of journeying with this gift, this deep gift of this connection of my being, my body, the elements, my cells, and this form, this divine form that I've chosen to be born in this lifetime, and how the stretches of this vessel interconnects with the stretches of the multiverse of everything and everyone and in between, and the nothingness equally. So that was one of my earliest gifts, and it continues to be a daily moment to moment practice. So that was one of my core ones.
Yeah. Beautiful, thank you. And I know that the sacred dance and movement is something that you is very dear to your heart, and you cherish with an enormous amount of reverence. And yeah, so thank you for sharing that story. I'd like to, when you were sharing within the field of self-expression, I remembered a moment, and I wanted to share this with those people that are listening in this conversation, and that is sometimes the very gifts that we have are the most obvious things in the world. They're so obvious that we kind of discount them, right?
Mm.
It's like, because it's so natural, it's so a part of who I am, that it feels, it's almost a sense that, well, everyone else surely gets it as well. It's that sense, and it's very easy to devalue these gifts, these abilities, these talents. So I remember I had a very poignant moment when I was part of a training. This was when I was still in the corporate world, and it was a training called the Oneness Mentoring Group. And basically there were two components to it. One was intuitive coaching and one was intuitive speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Now, speaking would have been, honestly, if someone said this to me when I was younger, would have been the last thing on the planet that I wanted to do. And this is another point that I want to raise, is that the thing that we have the greatest amount of fear, resistance towards, is often the very thing that our soul wants to actually experience. I used to experience a lot of anxiety and a lot of terror, actually. It wasn't even just anxiety. And it was really, really confusing for me because I had no reference points. I didn't understand why I was having these very, very intense experiences. But basically, what happened was for me, when I was standing, particularly in the classroom, when I was standing at the front of the classroom to deliver a speech or some kind of oral presentation, it was so challenging for me. So challenging. The emotional, mental, the physical as well. It was really, really intense. And so kind of fast forward about 10 or 15 years later, when I was at this Oneness Mentoring Group, I still had experiences of resistance and emotional trauma and energy that wasn't allowing me to be in my full, natural, effortless, self-expressive self. But underneath it, there was something inside me that went, this is the most natural thing that I could be doing with my life. And it was a really bizarre paradox, because inside there was this knowingness that no, this is what I'm meant to be doing. And at the same time, my experience was challenging. You know, it was awkward, it was edgy, it was, you know, I would feel confusion or go into self-doubt, or my mind would become clouded or foggy, or my throat would get tight, or my hands would be sweating, you know? So I just wanted to really share this, because for a lot of people, what it is that you're really meant to be doing, there are going to be dragons and obstacles in the way of that path. That is just part of how it is. And so often have a look at what it is that you are deeply afraid of, or there is resistance, or there is tension or blocks around, because that's the path often, or at least it's a part of the path.
So what?
I'd love to ask you, in what I've just shared, is there something that is enlivened in you? Is there something that you could share with people, perhaps around that process of having to go through that alchemical process of being able to transform a piece of coal into a diamond?
Into multiple diamonds, indeed. Yes. It's elevated for me to do one from alchemy into exponential alchemy.
All right, we'll go with that.
Wow, poignant example that you shared. Thank you so much. This giftitude of us offering is so much. I'm receiving so much from this equally, from understanding you more and strengthening our interconnected custodian bonds. And that's been a core part of the journey for me of from coal to diamond alchemy process. equally of it's one and the same really for me in terms of this deep connection with the light. It's equally this deep home embrace of the darkness, of seemingly the ugliness or the mundaneness of the coal. It's this reciprocity of this yearning and understanding from practice, from years of practice, that is only through the coal that nature gifts the diamonds. We cannot shortcut, and we're very much, I would be bypassing the gifts of this life that I'm so deeply blessed by, and equally have chosen. If I'm to dance around the detour rather than go straight for the gold, right? And so it's a fine line in terms of being, a potential martyr or a potential saboteur, in terms of, the over of anything, the over of loving or over giving, over discipline, over discernment, so forth. And so this exquisite centered oneness, infinite space is always the prayer and the intention. So perhaps I'm pondering how I could anchor that into an example. Would that be useful?
Yeah, I'd love that. I'd love an example. Yes, an experience, an example, something that we can, crystallize what you're sharing. That would be wonderful.
Mm-hmm. Wow, well, it comes down to the experience that continues to arise right now, that's calling to come through, is through this process of the diamond process, from coal to diamond. One, I've had to let go completely of identity and any layer of cellular essence or nano residue, bacterium of any of this being about me. And that was the only way I feel I could truly transmute any element, coal element, into the dissolving and reimagining and recalibration into maturity, into diamond graduation. And it's the deepest journey I've been on, and it continues to pulse, and it's quite in the realm of speechlessness. So grateful to be witnessed and held by you, Dylan, in this realm.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're so welcome.
Mm.
What I would like to put into the space, because there were a couple of beautiful things that you brought into awareness, and I'd like to take it one level further, is that you mentioned that we can either try and bypass or get to where we want to get to, or we move towards the gold or the diamond, and we welcome whatever path, whatever lessons, whatever learnings it is that are on our path to learn. And I think this is a really important point here, because there are two very different ways that seem to be available of how we can navigate life. One is where it becomes very destination orientated. People are like, I want to get to there, and how do I get there in the fastest, quickest most effortless way. And what you were sharing is that all these gifts, talents, and abilities that lie within us, there's going to be the alchemical process of transforming the coal into diamond or gold. And even though that path may appear to take longer because we're engaging with the resistance, like all these unexpected things do come into our life, and we're having to then pivot and navigate and change and be flexible in how we move forward. But ultimately, though, that is the true path. It's, you know, the path of actually leaning into those challenges is what really unlocks the magic and the gifts and the abilities. And again, there's another distinction that you kind of hinted at, and I want to really bring it into being here, is that the one path is when it's about me. It's about, what do I want? What do I want to get out of life? It's more of a self-centered, orientated way of living. And what you were sharing is that when I let go of that and move into more of a selfless space and orientate myself around moving towards my gifts, talents, and abilities, knowing that that is the very service that I can offer to the collective, which is completely different, like completely different experience. And it's also the path less traveled, definitely, really is. So is there anything you want to add to that? Because that's just what felt alive for me in what you were sharing before.
Thank you, Duan. Such a crystalline, poignant reflection. Indeed, you know, it's so fascinating the way you captured the reflection, that it feels like perhaps up until now, and I know it's shifting in every second, in every breath, and every time that each of us are showing up fully, that up until now I've sensed in the field and the collective consciousness that, or at least in the modern, postmodern era of the last number of hundreds of years, that it's been the celebrated culture to that, everything's got to be easy and efficient, and it's got to land so effortlessly and gracefully. And like it's just all on a platter for us. It's, you know, because we're so self-righteous and deserved, just because we've chosen to be born. And on some level that is true. It's absolutely a magnificent gift to be here and to revel in the gifts of generations before us. And yet I feel like this sense of endeavor, the honor in the endeavor and the honor in the bowing of the challenge, has in some ways, I'm so passionate about calling that back in, honoring that within ourselves, of each other. And that helps me dissolve layers of illusion of grandeur, self-grandeur, or any level of grandeur that's not truly deserved and not truly earned. That is such a core part of, I feel, this human consciousness and the way we relate. And so your beautiful encapsulation reminded me of this core essence of what I mean when I resonate with the call to diamond, or call to elixir, call to gold alchemy process. And then this selflessness into allness, into then centered, integrated, sovereign beauty. This beautiful journey of that I've had to go through and continue to. I pray to this, and that it's this collective rebirthing death process that we're all dancing in and journeying and discombobulating and coming back and awakening and going, oh, how's it for you? Like, this is how it's been for me. And it's in this sharing again. I feel like this is us reclaiming our sacredness and meaning. The meaning meme that helps us to sense make again. It's to sense make my gifts and talents and abilities in each of ours, and to really birth them together as well. It's not a solo journey anymore, not only a solo journey. And so that's what's arisen.
That's beautiful. And that's a beautiful segue into the next kind of key topic, because the first kind of theme is it's the awakening or the arising into the recognizing of, I do have something inside me that is of value, and there is something that I can contribute. And in the recognition of that, the path of fulfillment and purpose becomes an everyday experience. However, the recognizing of that is really only just one layer, because then there's the much longer journey is the embodiment. And you kind of hinted at that. You said, we move into this magnificent sovereign being, radiating our gifts. However, that journey is, quite an epic one. And for me, I'm still on that process. And to a degree, we all are on that journey, to really be all of who we are. So I guess the next unfoldment of this conversation is, what would you like to share to bring into awareness for people of what supports people to embody and to really be able to actually be those gifts, not just know them, but really radiate them, to really, you walk into a space and people can just feel it. It's just, you don't have to say a word. That's the level of embodiment that I'm talking about, right? Again, if you have any experiences or any guidance or anything like that, it would be really wonderful to hear what you have to share on that.
Thank you, Dylan. Thank you. What's most strong that's arisen is the invitation for each of our dear ones to truly remember and receive and rest in this deep knowing that you are so needed. You are so, every part of you, every emotion, every layer of you, the gifts, the abilities, the challenges, the seeming failures, the everything. It's the full spectrum, everything life and beyond and more. Like, it's the most perfect. It's perfect. It's all perfect. It's the perfect medicine for your family, for you, for your community, for your neighbors, for your colleagues, for your collaborators, for your future family, your future children. It's all perfect. So that, I feel, would be it's the most important ingredient of remembrance of yourself, of the beauty that you are, that we each are. And so when I sit in this space and truly allow myself to feel the magnanimity and the intensity, it's like wow, when I'm fully in this, there's no externality anymore. In a sense, it's all connected. And so I have to take full self-responsibility of my own beauty, of my own magnificence. And that is the most all-encompassing journey and the most challenging, I feel. Because once I do this, then it's natural to emanate that and to honor that. And then it becomes this insatiable adventure journey to then support that of everyone else and remind it and remember and invoke it and bring all the gifts and talents and tools that we cultivate to bring it back into balance again, in a sense. And so that, I feel, would be the deepest invitation. So, and and of course in that is the natural dissolving of all those weavings and stories and it just thankfully dissolves into the compost and the ether, the darkness ether of it all, to be rebirthed into the beauty again. So that's my continual daily and epoch era journey. As I shared with you, what's most alive for me is honoring the epoch gifts, that your pain, our suffering, where the deepest heartbreak meets our deepest strength and gifts is the gifts that is called for collective consciousness. That is where it's at. If it means your deep heartbreak of your grandfather or your grandmother passing and you didn't have that time with them in this life, or the love letter that you didn't write for your beloved in a previous era in your life, or your deepest heartbreak, whatever that is, it's equally a gift for us all to remember and to feel alive. This is what weaves and cultivates strength, this fortitude, this mana, courage. That this is what we're here for, to stand for. It's beyond the fighting for, but to stand for and to speak for. That is the fuel, the fertilizer, compost, seed, cheerleading that we all need. So
that's beautiful. So what I really loved is this absolute commitment that you're talking about around this invitation to truly remember, like, all of who I am, all of my gifts, all of my talents, all of the shadow elements, and how that is so perfect for my community, for me, for my family, and the alchemizing process that we go through on the embodiment process of this, the epic, awakened, inspirational, visionary path.
Indeed.
So the next question that I want to ask is, I recognize in my own life that the path for me started more solo, as in there was a lot of researching, there was a lot of integration and learning different modalities, and then going through the actual process, whether it's through deep meditation, various energetic healing modalities, various elements that I found to be true for me on my path. And I know that those elements are different for each person. But it got to this point in the embodiment journey where the insight that dropped in for me was to really know the level of integration and embodiment that is reflected through relationship with other. So I'd love to invite you to share, from your perspective, what's the importance or the power in being able to actually know how integrated or embodied I truly am through relationship?
Potent question there, brother. Thank you so much. It's such a important organic next step growth after our inner hero or shiro journey that we've either claimed or been witnessed for. And the witnessing is so important. I feel that once one has earned that rite of passage journey, in my experience, it's in relating with other beings, other species, relating with the universe that in duality form of the beauty external, seemingly external. And that is, it's in some ways, it's the last test of how embodied we are. It's that last frontier of how much can we dance, how much we honor and recognize the different alchemies of embodiment within other external world, and then to continually refract with our inner world and our inner compass and inner kaleidoscopes and temples and landscapes that we're continually challenged, that I'm continually challenged to witness and celebrate and bow to. So it's the exquisite last frontier. That's what it feels like. even though there's probably multiple more frontiers uh, when we land, or when I land. And so in my part of my research as well has been, the human dynamics, the balanced nature of fractals of human dynamics. And so I did land around like 80 to 120 is and has been through the millennia this natural, healthy number, rhythmic number, fractal of a number of community, a sense of village, a sense of belonging, where between 80 to 120 people can feel like we know each other and have close relations and can trust each other and have each other's back, and yet have enough spatial creativity and balance to feel like we can also be unique and sovereign and creative within ourselves. So, and then within that patterning, within that pod, in a sense of 80 to 100, then we have different layers of relatings in terms of, okay, there's the younger ones, and then there's the teenage relational emerging adults, and then there's the younger adults and older, and then the emerging elders, and then there's the elders. And that's natural. That's natural in nature, in the trees of the canopy, as much as humans. I feel like this is our remembering and coming back home to that natural way, and yet in a whole different new universal consciousness way, rather than so connected to blood, cultural lineage, or that which we're used to in terms of walking distance, place-based tribes based on sort of the past millennia or the past century type relating. So I feel like that's been part of the challenge, because it can be so confusing in terms of the different cultures and rituals and so forth that come from our lineage. So that's one core element that anchors me and that helps me decipher who I am meant to relate to and how, and that I feel as us as emerging visionary awakened leaders, it's so important to know our role in different circumstances. That sometimes I'm birthing an emerging elder who's 60 or 70 years old, for example. So from an age point of view, seemingly they're more wise, but if they're actually not, then I need to honor that inner wisdom elder, inner grandmother within me, that this grandmother or grandfather on an age-based level, they're yearning to be seen, they're yearning to be acknowledged and to know their place. And so if I on any level am on a victim level and seeing it just on a biological age paradigm, then we're not actually fully honoring what we're meant to honor of each other's souls. And then that goes for anyone younger, or I mean, it's not, that's just an example, but that's something that I really also, like, I've witnessed in terms of whenever I'm in my wisdom soul essence, that's of most service, rather than the human identity role element. So meaning I'm so open to being held and witnessed and supported by anyone of any age, essentially, is what I'm saying, whether they're 5 or 20 or 80, or whatever their seeming former role in the former societal paradigm is. So that would be a core invitation and a core sharing for anyone who's listening and journeying with us, to truly honor that as a potential to honor our roles in this life, our true roles.
Absolutely. Yeah, really, really beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, because the inner landscape is so diverse and epic, and some of us are wisdom keepers. Could be younger, but you're that could be your role, and other people are more in a support role, or nurturers, or visionaries, or whatever. And it is also, that's part of the receiving of our gifts and talents, is also emerges in relationship, because it's like every single one of us is a unique key, like piece or a pin or an element in the greater fabric. And so often that comes alive in relationship with others as well. And then of course the embodiment process of ensuring that the shadow elements that maybe were not so accessible, particularly the ancestral DNA elements, as well as the soul akashic elements, can be a little bit more nuanced and more specific, because there's no story. There's nothing that happened in this life. They happened 4, 5, 6+ generations ago, or happened in a different time frame. And so we get to, it's like, because of the nature of energy, the energetic patterns in my field get magnetized into the space with you. And it's like, we get to celebrate our gifts and abilities, and we can see, oh, you know, you're into language, you're into syntax, you're into communication. And we could also notice the shadow elements as well. And we could connect with someone else, and it's a totally different experience. And then, of course, to make it even more fun, we can connect with the same person a year later, and it can be completely different, because we both changed, we both evolved. And so what I would like to put into the spaces for people listening is a very powerful practice that has supported me enormously, is to really sit in presence with another person, and with a common intention of beingness integration, and to acknowledge that whatever is showing up in the space, whether it's something in me, whether it's something in you, or whether it's something that is a co-creation between both of us, through the full honoring and the observing and the loving and appreciating, it naturally integrates. And I have actually found that to be such a powerful embodiment practice. And there are things that I've been able to access and clear and resolve that I wasn't able to do just by myself. And it's that reminder of what you were sharing before, when we're in tribe with 80 to 120 people that we trust and we love, we can go into the depths of who we are, because there is that trust, there is that connection, there is that love there. So, so important.
So well said, brother, on all the levels. And I love how you specifically also noted and referenced about the different roles we each offer, in terms of, you know, sometimes we're custodians, sometimes we're guardians, sometimes we're visionaries and creatives and inner child, and the different roles and different people offering those different roles and gifts at different times, and also honoring that's within each of us at different times, and that just adds to a whole nother fractal, like, power to the nth degree potential complexity or challenge within this path of noting and really nuancing what's the most wise role to call forth in every moment, in every context, in every situation. And then, okay, it's wow, right? And so your beingness integration exercise or offering invitation is I mean, that's the nectar right here. That if we're in beingness, in full presence, and invoking that in every relating opportunity in our days, in the cycles of our days, in the cycles of our lives, then what more could we do in many ways? I mean, how much more could we bow to the magnificence of what's possible in relation to the other, seemingly the other, although it's for me also, I'd love to hear how it is for you. It's very much the multiverses fractaling through one being, right? It's that's how it, depending on how, where that being is as well, right? And so how often would you say that you practice, or that is it consistent, like every relating, or it's a specific invocation session type or combination?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's two layers to that. What I notice is, if, let's say, I'm in a relationship with another person, and it's just a normal, let's say I'm going to call it normal relating, there could be all sorts of stuff that is going on in my inner world, and I've now developed a way that I can actually be with that process, that still have a conversation with the person, and use that moment in time space to further evolve myself in connection with that person, and they might not even be aware of that. But then at another whole level, it's when there's a direct invocational, very strong intention, particularly if there's a theme, specific theme, and the other person has a resonance to that theme. That's when, for me, it can go really deep, really deep. So I use it for both.
Amazing, Duan. That was also inspired me. What you shared has inspired me to also speak and perhaps close loop my last sharing on point in regards to your question of relation. A simple exercise I come back to is continually checking my balance relational constellation. So I'm continually checking and this is my offer, my invitation to whomever is with us right now journeying, is check within oneself consistently. It may perhaps to start with on a weekly basis or whatever's comfortable for you, and then aim towards a daily level. Is what is my relation to an elder feminine in my life, and then an elder masculine person. And it doesn't have to be culturally connected or in your sphere of someone you know yet. Someone who's like wiser, someone you look to, someone you can really lean into and surrender and sink into. Oh, I can surrender in this person's wisdom and holding of all that I'm journeying through or going through in this human life. And then equally, who is a masculine energy and who is a feminine energy of who is journeying with me on a very similar stage of growth. And a question, asking yourself, do I have these people? What is my relation to that energy in my life? Because there's different energy alchemies with each one that I'm mentioning. And what is my relation to a younger feminine and a younger masculine, even to the extent of 5 to 10 years younger, and then also younger as in child, toddler, which that in my experience, so those 1, 2, that's 4. I would add each actually 5 layers. So the elder, as in elder, we're talking very close to the perhaps end of their life type elder. And then elder, and so that the next level of eldership would be more like 10, 20, maybe 5, 10 years older. So there's 5 layers of relational connection that I'm consistently checking in with myself. Am I balanced? Am I balanced in the circle of life in terms of relating? And then within that, I would invite you to stretch and challenge yourself to then create those energy connections within every element of your life, as in the emotional level, the spiritual level, the professional level, the creative level. To start with those concentric circles, my intuition is that once they're even acknowledged, those relational connections, and then anchored and actually thriving in your life, then what I've been finding is there's bliss and grace and liberation in the deep sense of belonging and purpose in the center of who am I in relation to the world and other beings. So that would be my invitation.
That's amazing. And look, my sense is that very few people have set that up, like just tuning into my own life. I'm like, there's definitely elements that I haven't actually considered, partly because of how I've been living for the last 3 years, but it's a good reminder for me as I come back to Sydney very, very soon, to have that framework, that matrix in my awareness, and to call that in. So that's a really beautiful reminder, because I feel that that's really lacking in our society for most people. I would say very few people have that at the moment, and the power and the support, and as you said, like, wow, I could just feel the energetic potency of having those connections in place. And again, it's the full honoring of all the stages of life, which I also feel has been lost in our society. The mainstream world is very youth focused, and as people get older, it's like we kind of hide them away in some retirement village, that people are waiting to die, basically, instead of being dynamic, still active contributors to life in just a different way. So that's just such a powerful reminder. So thank you. And I feel this is a beautiful segue to invite you to share how people can connect with you moving forward. I know you've got lots of incredible projects and amazing contributions. And yeah, I'd love for you to share what they are and what would be a powerful, useful, fabulous way that people could connect with you more.
Thank you, Duan. So Wisdom Frontiers is one of my core platforms and offerings that I'm invoking and finessing energy towards, and so I'm very excited about that platform, which you know elements about. And there are some new earth paradigm weavings and marinations that we have. That is exciting as well. And excuse me. So I would love to invite anyone who'd love to stay connected to, for the time being, as I refresh the new platforms, to send me an email on globalimpactnetwork.co@gmail.com for the time being, and or any of the Instagram platforms for now as well. You can find me on Purpose Global, at Purpose Global, or at globalwomenleaders.co. Those are a few options, and then there'll be many more to come. So such an honor, brother. Thank you so much. Always such joy and a cosmic gift, and multi-realmic home journey with you on so many levels. I'm so honored, and I feel so blessed and so grateful. Looking forward to ever more together.
Yeah, thank you, Kana Leya, and thanking everyone for tuning in today. Feel free to write questions, comments, insights, sharings. We'd love to hear from you. Yeah, we'd love to get some feedback as in what was alive for you, what touched you, what is bubbling up within your heart. So much appreciation to everyone. Thank you so much, Kana Leya. Thank you, people. Speaking to you soon.